The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Hello children, welcome back. No man is an island, said John Donne. Don't you agree with this? Of course we should, isn't it? Human beings very necessarily depend on one another, as it is very difficult for them to manage it all alone, to live in solitude, to get isolated. See, the physical well-being and the mental health highly relies and depend on the quality of the relationship that we manage or maintain. Shared experience definitely keeps us together during the tough, difficult times that we have experienced it very recently and very personally too. It was only these relationships that helped us to stay connected and stay positive in thoughts and action. It is with the web of these relationships and connections we draw strength, courage and even the power of resilience. So is it not important to take care of these relationships? And how do you do that? Very continuously you have to go attending this relationship. Spend time for it. Be in person to that relationship. Try to communicate with that relationship. Appreciate at times. Apologize. Communicate. And even you can forgive. Are we all doing all these things to maintain a relationship? We are least bothered about these relationships. Normally we say blood is thicker than water. Very true. No other relationship is strong as the blood relationship. At least do we give importance to such relationships? No, that's what our relationship, the bond of these relationships becomes so fragile. It's like monsoon, at any time it can change. So do you value your relationship, or does your relationship has values? See, I found this acronym, value, VALUE, this acronym from Forbes, that I felt very interesting, informative, creative and very perfect. What does V stand for? It stands for vulnerability. What does it mean by that? It is having the quality of accepting your weakness. A, authenticity. Authenticity, being true to oneself and be who you are. Be yourself at all times. Then comes L. L, level-headed. Level-headed, be balanced, as we say in all the classes. L, level-headed. Stay calm when you undergo the turbulent, difficult situations. U is upfront. Stay in advance. two things in advance. And E, it's empathy. Empathy. You should have a considerable thought towards the challenges that others are facing. So, it's so nice to consider all these values to have a valuable relationship. Doesn't it sound interesting? Yes. Here we go to read a story, The Price of Flowers, written by Prapat Kumar Mukhopadhyay, where it conveys the matter that words and deeds also connects and cements the bonds of relationship. Dear children, The Price of Flowers is a very touching anecdote or a short story written by Prapat Kumar Mukhopadhyay in Bengali originally and then translated to English by Leela Ray. The story is set in London during the pre-independence era, and it portrays the life of a very poor English family. The narrator of the story is one Mr. Gupta, who is an Indian civil servant who undergoes training in London. Through this story, the author tries to clear the misconceptions about India, the role of faith in consoling a person, and even how unscrupulous people exploit the believers in superstitions. Children, let me ask you one thing. What is your opinion on these superstitious beliefs? Is it good? No way, isn't it? It even sounds so stupid to follow such beliefs. You think when a cat crosses your way, or even you go to an extent of following or practicing black magic during this artificial intelligence era. See, this black magic all is practiced to gain quick wealth or even to put down their enemies. That's what we said about the bonds of relationship, the hatred. Is it actually good? When we try to respect each other, the strength of our bonding increases, and sharing and caring, love and affection increases to make life beautiful on this earth. Is it not grave going behind this black magic? See, I agree, India is a country rich in traditions and culture. But is it good or scientific to go behind this unauthentic black magic that even taunts our picture of our country? The story marks that not only in India but also people around the globe are fed by these thoughts with the religious background. Always these superstitious beliefs are connected with the religious background. So it is very easy to make people a prey for this. Now, the responsibility is in your hands. You have to think about it right now, whether we will have to go behind such beliefs during the period of this artificial intelligence. Very scientifically we have started proving everything. We have started understanding life at Mars, hotel at moon. Okay, so innocent people are trapped in all these unwanted activities. It is definitely like a business right now. Belief in God is good, but God is everywhere. Why can't we trust that and let us keep ourselves away from these black magics? Okay. Children, actually this anecdote is very excellent, where the theme centers around a sister's love for her dead brother. It also deals with the hardships of poor people dangers of war, and unfulfilled desires and dreams of ordinary people, and superstitions. Main character of the story is Maggie, a girl who belonged to a same age group, and her mother, Mrs. Clifford, and Mr. Gupta, the Indian civil servant. Children, make it for sure that story has a great impact to all the readers, where towards the end, the final end of the story, compassionate people like us will definitely shed tears. It also proves that kind words and deeds will definitely lift a person even from the deathbed. At a certain point of time, the writer even goes for distinguishing the need for choosing a job to make ourselves satisfied. The thing is, what you need most is the head and brain to work. It is a nice attempt by the author where he begins the story and ends the story with a conversation between Maggie and Mr. Gupta. Children, towards the end, it was really a very kind gesture from the side of Maggie, where she was ready to sacrifice her earning of 1 shilling to buy flowers and place it on the grave of her brother who is laid at rest at Punjab. The narrator even goes for justifying the reason why he got that money, as flowers are not expensive at India. He says that she should not be deprived of the joy of sacrifice, because the flowers that is placed on the grave of Frank, brother of Maggie, is priceless. It has the price of her love and affection for her own only brother. Might be she needs to work a lot to earn that 1 shilling, but still this 1 shilling is a tribute that she could pay for her brother for the very last time during her life. Okay, shall we see and go for reading the story? Very interesting. It's with dialogues. It's not boring. Dialogues are very brief, short, precise. Shall we start reading the story? Okay. This is the second chapter from the second unit. What is the name of the second unit? It is Words and Deeds. You have seen to the qualities of Mahatma Gandhi in the previous lesson, where he led the Indian people for the struggle of independence. And now you see how you can maintain the bonds of love and affection in all the relationship. The trust, the faith. The bonds of human relationship are very strong. They are so complex that it is difficult for us to explain. Words and deeds have a soothing effect and they cement the bonds of relationship. Here is a story about the impact of words. Read on. The Price of Flowers by Prapat Kumar Mukhopadhyay. It was nearly 1 o'clock and I was feeling extremely hungry. So, I made my way slowly to a vegetarian restaurant which was not far away in St. Martin's Lane. Lunch hours in London restaurants were not so crowded in those days. I found not more than 3 or 4 hungry people scattered around the room. I chose a table, seated myself and opened the newspaper. So, who is the narrator of the story? Mr. Gupta. A waitress came up and waited politely for my order. I raised my eyes from the paper, glanced at the menu, and told her what I required. "Thank you, sir," she said, and went briskly and noiselessly away. Briskly, very actively. I have seen waitress. Very actively. They don't stand idle when you go to a hotel, isn't it? They are very active. At that moment, my attention was drawn to a table not far from mine. A young English girl was sitting there. She had been watching me with interested surprise, but turned her eyes away as soon as I looked at her. The girl was 13 or 14 years old. Her clothes betrayed her poverty. Betrayed? Cheated? It tried to hide the poverty. Her hair hung in a heavy stream down her back. Heavy stream, long, thick hair. Okay. Her eyes were large. They had a sad expression. I watched her when she was not looking so that she would not notice. My lunch was served as she was finishing hers. The waitress brought her the bill. Bills are paid at the desk as one goes out. The desk is near the door. The girl stood up. My eyes followed her. As she paid her bill, she asked the cashier in a low voice, "Please, miss, can you tell me if that gentleman is an Indian?" "I think so," the cashier answered. "Does he come here all the time?" "Perhaps not. I do not recall having seen him before." "Thank you," said the girl and looked at me once more with a startled air and went out. Startled with a surprised feeling. It surprised me. Why? What was the matter? Her interest in me aroused my interest in her. When I had finished my lunch, I asked the waitress, "Do you know the girl who was sitting over there?" "No, sir, I don't know her to speak of. I have noticed she has lunch here on Saturdays." "Doesn't she come on any other day?" "I have never seen her on other days." "Have you any idea who she is?" "Perhaps she works in a nearby shop." "How do you know?" "Saturday is payday. That is when she comes. On other days, she may not be able to afford lunch. Perhaps she does not earn very much," was the answer said by the waitress. I was moved by what she said. So, the plight of a poor family where they could afford for their good lunch only once a week. So, Saturdays are their paydays. Weekly wages will be given, and so that at least one day they could have stomach full. The curiosity I felt about the girl persisted, stayed. Who was the child? Why had she inquired about me? Inquired about me? Was some mystery the cause of her interest? Her poverty-stricken, sad, anxious face took possession of my thoughts. Took hold of my thoughts. On Sundays, all London shops are closed. So I set to look out for her after breakfast on Monday morning. I looked into the shops on the streets near St. Martin's Lane and especially the shops on the Strand, but I found no trace of the girl. No trace of the girl, no proof of the girl. I couldn't see her anywhere else. The week passed. Saturday came again. I presented myself at the vegetarian restaurant once more with the hope that I could meet the girl again. As I entered, I saw her sitting at the same table as before. She was eating. I walked up, and took the chair opposite hers, saying, "Good afternoon." This is how we get to begin with the conversation with strangers, isn't it? "Good afternoon, sir," she responded hesitantly. Hesitantly, because she is a stranger. By making one brief remark after another, I was able slowly to start a conversation. At last she asked, "Are you an Indian?" "Yes," Mr. Gupta replied. "Excuse me, are you a vegetarian?" That innocent girl wanted to know whether he was an Indian, and even very particularly she wanted to know whether he was a vegetarian. So there is something else she wants to find from this person. Mr. Gupta asked, "Why do you ask that?" Mr. Gupta asked, "Why do you ask that?" She replied, "I have heard that most Indians are vegetarians." "How is it that you know anything about India?" I was so curious to know more about that girl. So I kept on questioning her to find from where she comes and what was the reason she wanted to know more about me. "See, my elder brother is in India. He is a soldier." "I am not much of a vegetarian," I answered her question, "but I enjoy a vegetarian meal now and then. Now and then, very occasionally." The girl seemed disappointed. She was disappointed by the answer that he gave. What was the answer? He said, "I am not a perfect vegetarian. Very occasionally." I learned that her only guardian was this elder brother. She lived with her old widowed mother. "Do you hear from your brother?" Mr. Gupta asked. "We have not had a letter from him for a long time. My mother is very worried. People tell her that India is full of tigers and snakes and fevers. She is afraid something has happened to him." "Is it true, sir, that India is full of tigers and snakes and fevers?" So here, the misconception about India. "No," I smiled. "How could people live there if it were?" The girl sighed softly. She felt it to be a true answer. "Mother says she would like to ask an Indian about these things if she can find an Indian." The girl looked at me with eyes full of entreaty. I understood how she felt. She wanted me to see her mother, but she did not have the courage to ask me to accompany her home. A keen desire to meet this poor, anxious mother took hold of me. I had not had the opportunity to visit an impoverished English home. Impoverished, poor English home. I wished to see how the poor lived in this country, to know what they think. The next question was, "Will you introduce me to your mother sometime? Would you like me to accompany you home?" "I can go someday." The girl's eyes brimmed with gratitude, filled with gratitude. "Thank you ever so much," she said. "It's so kind of you. Can you come now?" "With pleasure," he answered. "It will not interfere with anything else you have to do." She wanted to clear whether it will be a disturbance for Mr. Gupta. "No, no, and not at all. This afternoon is entirely my own. I am free. I have no appointments or engagements, so I can rightly join you, accompany you to your home and meet your mother." The girl was delighted, so happy. We finished our lunch and got up together. As we walked, I asked her, "May I know your name?" She said with a sweet voice, "My name is Alice Margaret Clifford." "Would you mind walking?" she asked. Not at all, I answered, if it is not difficult for you. No, I walk home every day. Walking is not painful to me because I walk to home every day. I don't hire a vehicle. I asked the girl, do you come this way often? Yes, she answered. I work as a typist in the civil service stores. Every afternoon I come home this way. Today is Saturday, so I am off early. Shall I call you Miss Clifford or Alice? She replies, I am not grown up yet. You may call me what you like. I am usually called Maggie. She laughed. Are you very anxious to grow up? Yes. Tell me why. There is a reason. When I grow up, I shall be paid more for my work and my mother is old. So, the responsibility of taking care of a family is wholly on her shoulders. The love and affection that she had for her mother. The keen interest that she should take care of her mother at her old age. Is the work you do to your liking? No, the work is very mechanical. I want to work that it will make me use my head and brain work, like the work of a secretary. This is where I said mechanical work and using our head and brain work. Normally, head and brain work is considered to be the white collar jobs, clerical jobs. Mechanical work, where you do only physical job, not using your mind or your intellect more. So here you will have to select according to your interest. That should satisfy you, and your work should be your passion too. We crossed the bridge and arrived in Lambeth. It is a poor neighborhood. If I ever become a secretary, Maggie said, I shall take my mother away from here. So she was not satisfied by her place of living. She was worried. And the first thing that she says after getting a high paid job is that she will take her mother immediately from this dwelling to a better place, to a comfortable place. Did your father call you Maggie or Maxie? When he was very affectionate, he called me Maxie. How did you know? Yes, I answered mysteriously. Very strange. We are Indians, we know about the future and all kinds of magic. Just it was like a kidding. That's what I have heard, she said. She also acknowledged with what he said. Even I have heard such informations. Indeed, I was surprised. What have you heard? I have heard that there are many people in India who have occult powers. They are called yogis, but you are not a yogi. Occult, magical powers. You have seen people who can take ash or valuable gold ornaments. Certain people are there who have this magical powers. They are called as yogis. But you are not a yogi. How do you know that I am not a yogi, Maggie? Yogis do not eat meat. In the beginning you have said that you are not a strict vegetarian, isn't it? Is that why you asked me in the beginning whether I am a vegetarian or not? She smiled without answering. We had reached a narrow doorway. Maggie took a thin latch key out of her pocket and opened the door. Latch, lock. She entered and said, please come in. That hospitality she was ready to show even to a stranger. When I was inside, Maggie closed the door. She went to the foot of the stairs and, raising her voice a little, called, Mother, where are you? I am in the kitchen, child. The answer came from below. come down. It is necessary to explain here that London streets are above the ground. Kitchens are often below the street level. Maggie looked at me questioningly. Do you mind coming down to the kitchen where my mother is working? Not in least. Come on, I said. Together we descended the stairs to the kitchen. Mother, said Maggie from the doorway, an Indian gentleman has come to see you. Where is he? The old woman asked eagerly. With a smile, I stepped into the kitchen behind Maggie. She introduced us. This is Mr. Gupta, mother. She said, Mr. Gupta, my mother. How do you do? I said and held out my hand. Excuse me, my hands, she said, holding them out for me to see. They were covered with flour. Today is Saturday, she explained. I am making cakes. People will come to buy them this evening. They'll be sold on the streets tonight. This is the way we make our living. Lots of trouble. That's what we said in the introduction. The hardships of poor people. So weekly once they have to make something, sell, earn from that and live out of the money what they have earned. You know how meager the amount will be. You have seen people selling on the platforms. So condition of their life all will be really pathetic and simple. So here the author speaks about the plight of this small English family where they suffer to earn their livelihood. Saturday night is a time of festivity in poor neighborhoods. Why? It is a day of wage. All sorts of things are sold from countless lighted push carts. Push carts you have seen in the platforms, wheeled carts, a mobile cart. The streets are more crowded than on any other day. Saturday is the day the poor are able to spend a little, for they receive their weekly wages. Ingredients for cake making is flour, sugar, fat, raisins, eggs, and so forth were set out in readiness upon the dresser. Several freshly baked cakes in tins were also there. Sitting in such a poor kitchen will not be very pleasant for you, will it? Mrs. Clifford said. I have almost finished my work. Maggie, take him into the sitting room. I'll come in a minute. No, I protested. I can sit here well enough. I am an ordinary person like you. I can even be a part or be one among you people where you live. The cakes you make are nice ones, I must say. Mrs. Clifford thanked me with a smile. What kind of country is India, sir? Asked Mrs. Clifford as she resumed her cooking. A beautiful country. Safe to live in? Certainly, but not cold like this country. It is somewhat hot. What type of climate do we have? A temperate climate, isn't it? It is not cold like the other countries. Aren't there too many snakes and tigers? Don't they kill people? Don't believe that. I laughed. Snakes and tigers keep to the jungles. They get killed themselves if they come too close to places where people live. How can these people come to the places where people live? It is definitely going to harm them. So they live only in forest. And fevers. In some places in India, there is more fever than in others. It is neither the same everywhere, nor the same all the year round. At times, it gets affected by monsoon or some other different climatic condition, but not always. My son is in Punjab. He is a soldier. What kind of place is the Punjab? The Punjab is a very fine place. There is little fever there. It is very healthy. There is little fever there, little? No. A little, little, you know the difference, isn't it? There is little fever, no fever. It is very healthy. I am glad to hear this, Mrs. Clifford said. Her baking was finished. Maggie, she said, take Mr. Gupta upstairs. I'll wash my hands and bring tea. Maggie showed the way to their sitting room and I followed. The furniture was cheap and there was not much of it. The carpet was old, torn in places, but everything was extremely clean. It was a very neat and tidy place. Though it was a poor dwelling, everything looked very neat. Maggie drew the curtains back and opened the windows. There was a glass bookcase. I stood in front of it. Mrs. Clifford came in carrying the tea tray. A few minutes later, all trays of the kitchen had vanished from her person. She had cleaned her hands very neatly, very hygienic living. As we drank tea, I talked about India. Mrs. Clifford showed me a photograph of her son. It had been taken before he left. His name was Francis or Frank. Maggie brought out a book of pictures he had sent her for her birthday. There were many pictures of Simla and the surrounding mountain country. On the inside page was written, to Maggie on her birthday from her loving brother Frank. Maggie, said Mrs. Clifford, show Mr. Gupta the ring. Has your brother sent you a ring? I asked her. Let me see what kind of ring it is. It is a magic ring, Maggie explained. A yogi gave it to Frank. She brought it and asked, can you see the past and future in it? See, how is it possible to see the past and future in a magical ring, a crystal ring? I have heard a lot about crystal gazing. A crystal was set in the ring. I took it up and examined it. When Frank sent the ring, Mrs. Clifford said, he wrote that if you concentrate on a distant person as you gaze into it, you will be able to see him and what he is doing. When my son sent this ring to me, you know, he has instructed me, if you want to see me, you can gaze at this ring for a long time and I can be visible over the ring. And what am I doing can also be seen over this crystal. This is what the yogi told Frank. Maggie and I have concentrated upon it again and again because we have not had any news of Frank for a long time. But we have not been able to see anything. Why don't you try? You are a Hindu and you may be able to do it. A false belief. Okay. I realized that superstition was not confined to India. It is not only in India but also everywhere. I did not have the heart to tell the mother and daughter that the ring was nothing much, a brass with a piece of ordinary glass stuck into it. They believed their Frank had sent them a new and miraculous thing from a distant land, a dream India. How could I shatter their faith, trust, hope, belief? All these things is very difficult to shatter within a second. So they had a strong belief as it was informed by her own son. So this trust and faith cannot be triggered or evaded from these people immediately. So I didn't do that. I cannot hurt their feelings. Urged by Mrs. Clifford and Maggie, I took the ring into my hand and stared at it intensely for a long time. I cannot see anything, I exclaimed at last, giving up. The mother and daughter were disappointed. To change the subject, I said, here is a violin. Is it yours, isn't it, Maggie? Yes, Mrs. Clifford answered. Maggie plays quite well. Maggie, please play something for us. Oh, mother, Maggie looked at her in protest. Maggie, I pleaded, please play something. I am very fond of violin. I have a sister at home about your age. She used to play for me. Very sentimental approach to make this girl play. The way I play is not at all worth listening to, Maggie said. I am not a trained violin player, so it will not be so good to listen to me playing violin. My entreaties at last persuaded her to play. I don't know many pieces, she said. What would you like to hear? Shall I choose something? All right, then give me your music. Let me see what you have. Maggie brought an old music case bound in black leather. I opened it. Most of the pieces were light airs like Goodbye, Dolly Gray, Honeysuckle and the Bee, etc. There were a few really good, though old-fashioned ones, things like Robin Adair, Annie Laurie, The Last Rose of Summer, etc. There were several Scotch songs, so I selected The Bluebells of Scotland and handed Maggie the music. Maggie played and I hummed the tune to myself. When the song was over, I praised her, playing lavishly as I thanked her. Maggie has never had the opportunity to study, Mrs. Clifford said, the disappointments in their dreams. She had learned what she knows by herself. If our circumstances ever improve, I shall arrange for her to have lessons at dreams, hopes. On my way back, I was filled with astonishment. The incident touched me very deeply. 3 months passed. I visited Maggie and her mother several times at their home and took Maggie to see the zoo once. She rode the elephant. She said, Indian Raja. Like all the other boys and girls, how delighted she was. But no news had come from her brother. Urged by Mrs. Clifford, I went to India House one day and made enquiries. I was told the regiment to which Frank belonged was fighting on the northwest frontier. Mrs. Clifford became extremely worried when she heard it. One day, I received a postcard from Maggie. She wrote, Dear Mr. Gupta, my mother is very ill. I have not been able to go to work for a week. We shall be extremely grateful if you take the trouble to come to see us. Maggie. It was a note written by Maggie to Mr. Gupta requesting him to pay a visit to their house. I had told the family with whom I lived about Maggie and her mother. At breakfast, I spoke of the letter. My hostess said, when you go, take some money with you. The little girl has not been able to go for work for a week. She had not received any pay. It is probable that they are hard up, facing difficulties. After breakfast, I took some money and set out for Lambeth. I knocked at the door. Maggie opened it. She was looking much pulled down, disappointed because her mother was sick. Her eyes were hollow and ringed. Oh, thank you, Mr. Gupta, she exclaimed when she saw me. It's so kind of you. How is your mother, Maggie? I asked. She is sleeping now. Her condition is very serious. The doctor says it is aggravated by her anxiety over Frank. There is no news from him yet. She may not live. If this situation persists, continues, if she doesn't come to know any news about Frank, might be she will die. What is it, Maggie? I asked. Come into the sitting room and I will tell you, she answered. We tiptoed carefully, walking with toes, very carefully, silently, as her mother was sleeping there. Into the sitting room, lest the sound of our footsteps should disturb the sick woman. I turned when I reached the center of the room and remained standing there. What is it, Maggie? I repeated my question. Maggie gazed up into my face with beseeching eyes, begging eyes. I waited. Then she covered her face with her hands and wept silently. I was in a fix. I was troubled with the sight of this little girl crying. What could I say to console this child? Her brother was fighting on the frontier. Only God knew whether he was alive or dead. Her mother was the only person she had on earth. If she lost her, what would happen? Where in London could this girl on the threshold of adolescence go? Threshold? The step near the door. I pulled her hands away from her face. Maggie, tell me what you wish me to do. If there is anything I can do to help you, I shall not hesitate. Trust me, I'll definitely help you, if possible, if it is within my limits. Mr. Gupta, the girl said, I do not know what you will think of the request I am going to make. Please forgive me if it is very, very wrong. This is what in the beginning I said. To maintain relationship, it is good to apologize, it is good to forgive, it is good to communicate, to maintain the relationship. What is it? What do you wish to ask? All day yesterday, Mother kept saying that if Mr. Gupta would come and gaze into the crystal, he might learn something about Frank. Mr. Gupta is a Hindu, she said. If only he would come, she said, that is why I wrote to you. If you want me to try once more, go and bring me the ring, Maggie. Of course, I'll do it for you. But if you don't say anything again this time, I understood what Maggie meant. I was silent. Mr. Gupta, I have read in books that Hindus are extremely truth-loving. Is it? If you could bring yourself to tell Mother only once after looking into the crystal that Frank is all right, that he is alive, will it be too much of a lie? Will it be very, very wrong? An innocent girl's doubts. As she spoke, tears streamed from her eyes. I thought it over. I am not very virtuous. I am not too good. I have done many sinful things. So I decided to do this, just to maintain this relationship. It would be the least of my offenses. If I attempt to say a lie in favor of this girl to rescue the life of this old woman, it is going to be the least offense that I have made in my life. So I don't bother about telling a lie. I decided, please Maggie, don't cry. Where is the ring? Let me take a good look at it this time. If I do not see anything, I shall do as you suggest. God will forgive me if it is wrong. Maggie brought me the ring. I took it and said, see if your mother is awake. 15 minutes passed before Maggie came back. Mother is awake, she said. I have told her that you are here. May I see her now? Gupta asked. Please come, Maggie replied. I approached the mother's bedside. The ring was in my hand. Wishing her a good morning, I said, Mrs. Clifford, your son is alive. He is well. The old woman raised her head a little off the pillow. Did you see that in the crystal? She asked. Yes, Mrs. Clifford, I answered without any hesitation. I have seen it. Her head dropped back. Tears of happiness welled from her eyes. She whispered faintly, God bless you. God bless you, my dear son. You have helped me to see my son. Mrs. Clifford recovered. It was almost time for me to return to my country. I wished to go to Lambeth to say goodbye to Maggie and her mother. But the family was in mourning. Frank had been killed in the fighting of the frontier. A month ago, Maggie had sent me a card with a black border. I calculated from the date and found that Frank had been dead some days when I told his mother he was alive and well. I felt ashamed to face Mrs. Clifford. So I wrote a letter to them announcing my departure and bidding them goodbye. The morning of my last day in London dawned. I was to leave before night. As I was breakfasting with the family, there was a knock at the door. A minute or two later, the maid came in and announced, "Please, Mr. Gupta, Miss Clifford has come to see you." My breakfast was unfinished. I left my plate and went eagerly to see Maggie. Maggie had come to say goodbye, lest she be late for office because of me. I took the permission of my hostess and got up from the table. Maggie was standing in the hall. She was wearing black. I took her into the adjoining library and made her sit down. "Are you leaving today?" she asked. "Yes, Maggie, today is the day of my departure." "How long will it take you to reach your country?" "A little more than 2 weeks, my dear." "In what part of the country do you live?" "I have entered the Punjab civil service. I shall not know exactly where I am posted until I arrive there." "Is the frontier very far from there?" "No, not very. Frank is buried at Fort Monroe, near Dera Ghazi Khan." The girl's eyes were filled with tears as she spoke. "When I go to that part of the country, I shall visit your brother's grave and write to you." "It won't be troublesome for you or inconvenient?" Maggie asked. "Why should it be? Dera Ghazi Khan is not very far from where I shall be. It will certainly be possible for me to go there someday. I'll write and tell you about it." Maggie's face was filled with gratitude. As she thanked me, her voice choked. She took a shilling out of her pocket and put it down on the table in front of me, saying, "Please buy flowers with this shilling when you go and lay them on my brother's grave for me." In my emotion, I lowered my eyes. The child had earned the shilling with so much toil, pain. I felt like returning it to her, explaining that in our country flowers grow in great profusion and do not have to be purchased. But I considered, why should I deprive her of the joy of this sacrifice would give her? All that this shilling could have given her, she was foregoing for the love of her brother. The joy of doing it was beyond all price. That's price of flowers. The relevance of the title to the story. The joy of doing it was beyond all price. The grief in her heart would be eased a little. What good would it do to deprive her of it? I picked up the shilling. "Maggie," I said, "I shall use this shilling to buy flowers and put them on your brother's grave." Maggie stood up. "How can I thank you? How can I thank you?" she said. "Now it's time for me to go to work. Goodbye. Remember to write." She said, "Yes, my heart fills with gratitude for you that you have accepted to buy flowers and lay it on the grave of my brother, my beloved brother, my only brother. How can I give a word of thanks to you? You are a human being with unparalleled quality." I got up and took her hand in mine. "Goodbye, Maggie. God bless you," I said and pressed her hand to my lips. Maggie left. I wiped a tear or two from my eyes and went upstairs to pack my bags. Yes, the price of flowers. How was the story, my dear children? I hope you felt painful by the end. Maybe you have got wet with your eyes, but definitely this story has touched the life of so many people, where we will have to give importance to the relationships. This is a period of uncertainty that we are undergoing. Unless the trust and faith and love and affection, nothing more we can share right now. Isn't it, children? Yes, I hope the story sounds very good with the many dialogues, very beautiful dialogues, very brief, simple dialogues that we are used up with the casual, practical life. I felt that you have understood the story, the value of the story. So let us give more importance to the relationship. This world, anything may happen at any time. A life of temporary feeling. This materialistic life should not take over the values. Let us all enjoy this life. Life is very simple and very short. Let us make use of it by loving, caring and sharing with each other. Yes, now an assignment for you. Write the character sketch of Maggie and Mr. Gupta and even the review of the story. I have already given you the format of writing a review, so it is better you write the review of the story, character sketch of Maggie and Mr. Gupta. Until I meet you in the next class, a bye from you. Thank you.